Morning, this is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Friday, February 6th, 2026. It's just after 10:30. And we have with us the Center for Crime Victim Services to talk about their part of the FY27 budget. So welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning. Thank you. For the record, my name is Jennifer Pullman. I am the director of the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services.
My name is Carol Brochu, and I am the Director of Finance and Administration. Good morning.
You have some information and just
Go right ahead. I just wanted to encourage you to speak a little loudly. We have a blower back here.
Oh.
That seems drown people out. So that would be excellent.
All right.
Keep that in
We'll
mind.
do our best. Thank you for that. I'm just coming off of a stop by the Vermont State Police for my lack of inspection, so I'm a little bit unnerved.
and you know that there's a bill on the.
Yes, I've been watching that closely, so.
Yeah, you can just tell them you thought they already passed that. Oh, dear. Well, deep breath.
Yes, I'm there, so, but I will speak more loudly, thank you. If it's okay with the committee, if I could just start with an overview of the center to provide context for our ask and some of the concerns that we have. As many of you know, the Center for Crime Victim Services is one of these wonky quasi-state agencies. We are one of, I think, 5 that is a state agency established in statute under 13 BSA 5361 with mandated responsibilities, but no state employees. And it's really important when we speak further about what that means for our agency, and Carol will get into that as well, to understand the challenges that presents for us overall as a state agency. Some of our responsibilities are, one is administration of the Victims' Compensation Program. That is established pursuant to 13 BSA 5352. It's a really significant program for victims and survivors in the state of Vermont, in that we provide, simply upon a finding of probable cause, some support for victims and survivors for really important expenses that accrue to them: medical, mental health, lost wages, some of those pieces that immediately come in terms of the impact. Crime scene cleanup is another big one, funeral expenses. And that is a program that we administer with a small amount of staff, but that provides coverage for the entire state. We also administer, per statute, the Vermont Restitution Unit. That's 13 BSA 5362. That's a unique program to the entire country, where that was established back in 2006, that provides upfront support for victims if there's a restitution order, and we can reimburse victims and survivors for their losses of that are the direct result of a victimization, up to $5,000. We take the victim out of the equation, and then we work with the person who caused the harm to collect that restitution from them. And that's a state program. We also administer grants, federal grants to 60 different sub-grantees, and that include also special funds and general funds. So we have 60 different sub-grantees that we support throughout the state, and the grant-making responsibility is significant in terms of what it involves for our staff, which basically includes Carol and 2 other employees. So that's not just simply making grants, it's site visits, it's oversight, it's reviewing budgets, it's making sure that we are good stewards of state and federal funds. The federal government conducts audits of us quite frequently, just to make sure that we're doing what we say that we are supposed to do. So that's not a small responsibility. We're also tasked with being a voice for victim survivor issues throughout the state, and provide training and also administer the a victim survivor advisory council that provides training to other agencies throughout the state. I do want to underscore, though, that since we are not state employees, when you have other agencies that are coming in and talking about the increase to health insurance, increase to other insurances, the increase to IT expenses, we are not able to be a part of the larger bargaining contracts. We have to go it on our own. So every increase that you hear about, that every state agency comes before you with, we are on our own. We have 19 employees, only 17 are full-time. And so the center has to find money to support those increases. Somehow, Carol does that. But it's really a significant burden on the Center for Crime Victim Services to not be able to be a part of these larger insurance pools, these larger IT pools. So how do we exist? Well, generally we exist, and you'll see, I don't know if everybody has this. Okay, perfect. My printer obviously was not doing well this morning.
Oh. Right?
Yeah, mine is a kind of a puce, I think, if that's the color.
The state printer is what it is.
But if you see on page 2 of this document, it continues to reflect that we receive very few general fund dollars. Most of our dollars are through federal and special funds. And for many of you, this will not be a surprise, but I think it's important when we talk about our funding is that when you look at that small little pie chart that talks about general fund dollars, most of those are straight pass-throughs to our sub-grantees. Network programs, CACs, special, I should say, sorry, child advocacy centers, special supervised visitation programs, prosecutors, and there's very little out of there that's for actual operation. What's important to note about the general funds that you see there is that we don't take, those are, again, straight pass-throughs for the most part. We don't take any administrative funds to administer those general funds out to the
Are
community.
you allowed to?
There's nothing that says we can't.
There's nothing that says we can't.
Okay.
But we don't, at this point, it would be a cut in funding to the grantees that receive those funds.
And that is part of our ask that we'll get to.
I'm looking at the supervised visitation program at 137,000. I guess I'm wondering how many visits does that enable you to do? This is the cost of a staff member. Is transportation included there too? It seems like a very small budget for visitations, but I don't know the number of visits.
There's a larger conversation on that.
Okay.
So in the past, the Center for Crime Victim Services has supported supervised visitation programs with 137,500 in general funds. Over the years, however, we've also used our special fund to support supervised visitation to the tune of about $2.7 million.
Oh, okay.
So in addition, the Department of Children and Families have also given grants to those same programs to provide these services. And again, we actually work collaboratively with them to provide this. The funding is small. It's like $30,000 for a program. It really doesn't provide a lot of services. In the past, it's also been very challenging to actually get those services throughout each county. There are many counties within the state of Vermont that just have not been able to even have supervised visitation programs within their counties, even though the courts are the ones that are, requiring this. So it has certainly been a challenge. It's something we've been working on for several years now, actually. What we have done is in this particular year, state fiscal year 26, we no longer we're able to continue to fund supervised visitation with our special funds. You'll hear more about the challenges we have with our special funds. So we had to make a decision that we just couldn't support them any longer with special funds. And so we only had the 137,500 that we've had historically. So that's what we gave out, and we sent letters to the programs that receive those funds, letting them know what has been happening and that we essentially have had conversations about this.
I was an assistant judge and we used to agonize over this, but my question now is, are you it for the state of Vermont? Is there other entities that contribute to this cause?
For the state of Vermont, it's the center, and then it's DCF, as I understand it, through federal,
I didn't hear what you said, the state of Vermont.
the state of Vermont.
Department of Children and Families also provides funding to the supervised visitations.
The different organizations on their own.
In collaboration with us.
You.
So the programs that we were giving funding to, DCF also gave funding to.
Okay,
So we did an RFP together.
Yeah.
And so
Try to
they
give
had
them
some
a
federal
therapeutic
funds
dose.
that they gave, and we gave funds as well.
thank you.
And we're working towards a more streamlined plan, which you'll hear about actually, in that for us, it doesn't make sense to have two different streams asking. So they have two reporting places that a program has to go. So they have to report to DCF and to us. And what we are hoping for and what HHS is looking at is a more streamlined plan for the $137,500 that we get from the general funds to just go to DCF, because we're asking too much of the
Right,
small amount of programs to have two reporting responsibilities.
thank you.
And so it's being looked at to transfer that to Human Services?
Yes,
And are you okay with that?
we have advocated for that for a while.
Okay.
It's too much on our subgrant,
Well, it
subgrant use.
Make a lot of sense to have two different.
It doesn't.
Yeah, so common sense prevailing is a good thing.
Let's hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And yet, they're system-wide, there are gaps. I even asked if I could ask the follow-up.
Go ahead.
question. I apologize. System-wide, it sounds as if there are real gaps in visitation. No matter who's administering it, it is, regionally, there are big differences.
Yes, that is true. And the hope is to work towards a place where that's not the case, but in each county, the reasons for not having one are a little bit different. So it takes a little bit of a deeper dive than what happened this off session, because there's been money that we've had that counties, for example, Lamoille County has not been able to access because they can't figure out what that's going to look like. So I think that the challenge is a little bit more deep than saying, well, if there was money, then we would build it. It's figuring out what those layers look like and what each county needs. But obviously critically important. And we also don't really understand, that's still an open question as to most of the referrals come from the courts, over 60%. And we don't understand what is driving those referrals. And I think it's important to understand what the needs are of the families and the non-custodial parents when we're building these programs. Well, turning to special funds, again, not a surprise. You've heard this. We have continued to experience declines in the three special funds that we have or that we administer: the compensation special fund, the restitution unit special fund, and the DVSB special fund. That's been for well over a decade. Nothing's changing, and we don't expect that it will, despite many, many efforts to mitigate and kind of strategize around how we can make this better.
Is anybody in the administration working on how to make this better, or is this being addressed by anybody?
No. We last asked JFO to take a look at it back in 2022. And we did, this body did implement one recommendation, which was really hopeful because the intent was that the $7.25 that from that overall surcharge, and you may recall, would go into the DVSB fund, into the compensation special fund. And the projection was that that would result in potentially $300,000 to $500,000 increase. That has been far from the case.
Yes.
Far from
Because we haven't gotten nearly that much.
No.
What was the 725 from?
the 13,730, I should know this one.
Part of the surcharge.
Yes, the overall.
It was $7.25 was originally going into the general fund. They took that $7.25 and split it between the
What
two.
was it from? What was being charged $7.25?
Traffic fines and criminal conviction.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. I'm just wondering if anybody on this committee knows, it seems, I remember being struck by this last year. I mean, just like the Commission on Women, the Human Rights Commission, that I don't understand the difference between you as a body, really, and these other commissions that, or centers or quasi-governmental that do get a 3%, so you know, a pay increase every year. I just am wondering why you don't. And does anybody on this committee have a sense? Yeah.
Well, I can ask the question. You're a independent agency, right? So what you are?
They're in statute.
We're a state agency.
We're the
State
state
agency.
agency.
You create an independent agency. They report to the legislature. They don't report, they're not part of the administration. The governor can't tell them or direct them anything to do. I believe that's correct. If that's the case, and then you see, then it's kind of messy because everybody else, we're dealing with agencies that are under the governor's control. Separation of powers essentially going on here.
Except they're the ones approving the budget.
Right. So we have a separation of powers that's supposed to be set up, but the legislature has created an end around that by creating independent agencies. So it's really messy, I think, but my opinion.
Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe your 3% is in governor's.
Yes, it is.
So, and that's something 3 or 4, or 5 years ago wasn't always in the governor's record. We used to have to
Right.
fight for it, but I think over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been there. You haven't had to fight for it necessarily. So,
So a little progress is being made.
yes.
I'm trying to look at
emphasize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking at your special funds and we have a special funds report. Thank you for doing this out. So the victims compensation special fund is in the black.
Yes.
But I don't know what the others haven't done them yet, but what I'm hearing is that they're not, that they're in deficit.
But they're in decline.
So the revenues I'm sorry, the revenues coming into the funds have declined. So over the past decade, truly, they've declined. So when you're looking at building a budget, you know, I can go back to 2017 where the fund was bringing in 2.2 million in revenues. Now we're lucky if the fund is bringing in a little over $1 million. So that's what we're talking about. If you're talking about the cash balance of funds, that's different. We do have a positive cash balance. Mostly that's kind of been the use of federal funds. We've relied heavily this past year on using our federal funding. As you can imagine, most of our federal funds that support victim compensation have a 3 to 4 year life cycle. And under the current administration, I felt that it was important to use as much of our federal dollars as possible to build up our special fund. So we have literally used 2.5 years worth of federal funding to support all of the victim compensation claims in this past year and a half or so. So I've been mindful to keep our fund balance healthy, knowing that we have a 47% decline in revenues and utilizing the availability of federal funds while we have them. So that's why you're seeing that.
Well, I'm glad to see it because there are many special funds that are in serious debt.
Well, and that is the case. You'll see historically that also our restitution fund has gone down considerably. I'm actually monitoring that month after month. Unfortunately, I do projections on a monthly basis for our board. We're seeing that the restitution fund really is struggling right now. I do project that that cash balance will be in the red within the next year if we don't see additional revenues of some sort. The DVSB fund, which is our other special fund, is in the black right now, but I think it should be noted that the reason it's in the black right now is because over the years, that fund in particular has received a lot of one-time general fund appropriations.
I'm
So
going to pause you here. I got 4 people with questions. Lynn, John, Wayne, Dave.
Okay, oftentimes the state legislature makes decisions, policy decisions that sound really good, but do have an impact. If you push it down over here, it has an impact over there. In 2017 and 18, when I was on the institutions committee, the judiciary committee, we got rid of or forgave a lot of traffic fines, and there were stories, people waiting around the block and
Yes.
throwing
Yeah.
tickets so they could get their license back, or that kind of thing. It was a perfectly legitimate thing to try to do to help people so they could have transportation and get to work. And so if you were depending on that, you had a decline.
Yes.
And I don't think that it had an impact, and I don't think we have put in those fees the way we used to.
Right.
That was a clear, we've done this with our compacts with the Secretary of State's office. We take other people's licenses and say, okay, you don't have to pay here. SOS has not enough, as a sort of decline in their budget to handle the things that they need for their OPR, for instance. So,
yes, good
example.
very much. So.
nobody remembers it, but I remember when we did, it was
Thank you
a
for bringing
big
that
deal.
up.
Yeah.
Everything affects something, right?
And
Yeah.
that's one of the important things that, as far as the special funds go, is that your practice and policy has changed. That's not going to go in a different direction. And we understand that it's important to enact policy that gives people a second chance, allows people to go to work. But the reality is that
Deprived you of the money you need to do the work you
Yes.
do, and that, you don't connect the two. It's like,
Thank you.
Okay, John?
So thanks for being here today. And I know you have like a plethora of like special funds. You're trying to, maintain a cash balance here, of some level here. So just if you can just tell us a little bit about what's your strategy for, you can't draw it all down here at once. You're clearly here. So how do you work that to maintain a healthy balance? You kind of use that.
Doing my best.
No, I know you do.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of curious about how that.
Yeah, I
decision
think
goes.
first of all, I think that the center, we've really looked at, what cost savings you can do, right? So what can you do? A few years back for the restitution fund in particular, it used to do an advance of up to $10,000. Again, realizing that we needed to reduce that because, again, that's quite a bit. And keeping in mind, I think what's really important to understand is we're one of the, I think, only states that does an advance of funds for restitution. And again, that person that has been victimized and has been ordered restitution, we're able to give them that advance for their loss. But it may take our restitution department decades to collect that.
That's
So
the other side of the coin.
that's the other
There's a
side of
lot
the
of-
coin,
Capture.
is that we're trying, again, we're trying to support victims and survivors, but we have a restitution unit that is collecting those debts for decades.
sometimes $5 a month
Yes.
as the finding of inability to pay then hinders our ability to collect. So
And
that's
it-
a reality.
And again, declining revenue. So as you all are now realizing that you know, again, when you have revenues that are going down, again, years ago, the restitution fund was bringing in again over $2 million. And now I just continually see declines in revenues. And yet, what's important to know is the claims that we're paying out have increased, obviously. So that's the thing that we've seen grow, is that we're paying out more, but we don't have the funds. So again, it is a balancing. I'm constantly looking at how much are we paying out, what's coming in. And we have reduced as, you know, you're going to see our budget, I think, is about as bare as you can get, you know, it's very little operating. I have utilized federal funds more so than historically has been done at the center, to support our personnel and benefits. So we really, I'm always looking at, you know, what are our funding streams that we have available to support our work, and to support victims.
And even in a very small way, but our staff, our team did not get COLAs. We did not get steps. So you know, Carol is working hard to just any little thing that we can do to keep from actually having to make cuts, is what Carol looks at.
We've lost about 6 employees since I started at the center in 2014. So we've reduced to, again, very small staff for the most part. We don't have, you know, a lot of people doing things. I am the only finance person in the entire organization.
Green and then Dave.
We have been thinking a lot more about offenders in recent years than we have about victims. You know, I was on corrections institutions, so I know that's the case, right? Now that in court, so the restitution that comes out of the case in court, does that go out directly to the victim, or does any of that pass through you or help support your organization? So if someone is as part of
the courts, they're ordered restitution. The offender is ordered to pay restitution to the victim. That's where that $5,000, depending on the loss, that's where the $5,000 can be advanced. But again, if someone is victimized and the courts order restitution for $20,000, the victim may get $5,000. But then, as we mentioned, they're waiting decades to get the rest based on elections. They may never see it. Yes.
Dave. And then Marty.
2 quick things. Are you able to garnish or capture tax returns?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you have the authority with the earned income tax credit increasing, people getting what? How big is your restitutions unit? One person?
No.
No.
I'm just joking.
This actually is our largest unit, I guess, if you
Yeah.
can say a 19 staff place has a unit, but it consists of a program manager, 4 collections specialists, and then 2 people who work specifically with victims.
If you had more, could you collect more? Or is it just the well is dry and it doesn't matter?
We're working with obviously individuals who just don't have the wherewithal necessarily, so it's, so I don't know that I could hazard a guess at whether that would make a difference. I do think, though, that it begs the question sometimes about how we support victims and survivors in our state, because we invest a lot of money in terms of like corrections and other places. But when you look at what our general fund allocation is, so I don't know about that. It's worth thinking about, but for right now, we are just thinking about the fact that in a year, the fund is going to be in a very different position, and we might have to label.
One quick one. Have you ever thought about working with the Office of Child Support? You have a relationship with them?
Yes, our program manager does. They have, absolutely, they have priority over our unit. I think some of the things that we've been thinking about and talking with people about, other states, for example, Hawaii has an order of priority in terms of how pieces are paid out. And we've thought about and have asked people to consider
I was thinking about when the magistrate sets the child support order, if he could embed into it this as part of the order. Anyways.
I think there are different ways to think about it because what I understand from speaking with the courts is that there are so many fees and fines that are expected of people who are have committed a crime and that they don't have any understanding. We get this in our unit, like, I thought I paid that. No, that was your probation supervision fee.
Yeah.
I thought I paid that. No, that was for your court fee. And trying to figure out a way that this can be collected in a less haphazard manner than it currently is might help to make it clear for people who are,
Think about it. Yeah,
because we know when our special funds, the interesting thing from the JFO report was when our funds have been in decline, somehow the special fund for the SIU programming, so the Special Investigation Unit program, doubled. So, you know, and I spoke with the court and they said, well, we don't know because they handed over to APRIS. And so it's worth considering
Yeah,
if we
feels like
should
there's a
think
story
about
there.
it in a different way. I know DOC has a bill actually in House Corrections Institutions, or there's a bill to think about elimination of supervision fees. So just a way to think about it in a larger way versus us coming in every time, every year and saying our funds are declining. Can we all get together? Can there be language to have a group to discuss, you know, what these fees look like and how they're collected? I know the Defender General gets a special fee. So, you know, having us all at the table to think about that process versus us all coming in different ways in a really ineffective way.
Idea. Marty?
Well, it does sound like a good idea, and maybe that's answering my question, because my first question was, if this restitution unit was created in 2006, what happened before? When, you know, in 2005, when the court would say, you owe $20,000 to this guy. Who enforced it at that point?
DOC was responsible and basically they handed it off to a collection agency called Grego. And Grego would take about 20% off the top of any, you know, anything that was actually paid to them. And their collection rate was about 19%. So there was a lot of concern about that. We moved to a different model in Vermont. We didn't want people going back to jail, being incarcerated because they had failed to pay. Because that doesn't help resolve the problem. And so the model that was adopted is the one that we have today, which is that there would be a pot of money that could help get victims out of the equation, most victims. The state, through the Center for Crime Victim Services, would pursue those collections, have various tools provided to them, would not take a single dollar off of what somebody who owed restitution. That would go straight to the victim or straight to reimburse the unit for what was paid out. So that is, I still think that was a great model. I was here back in the day when it was adopted. And again, I think not having people go back to, you know, an incarcerated setting when they haven't paid is not helping to accomplish the payment of an obligation.
Well, I would agree with that, but I think your suggestion, if there's a whole bunch of other fees, the defendant, the convicted person is obligated to pay, it would be, I think, more efficient for everybody to have all that in one group and you understood what all those fees were. So you didn't have the fellow that said, oh, I thought I paid that. I thought I paid that. I thought I paid that. Well, there's another one.
Could be a lot more efficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, let's move on. Want to be sure we get to your requests.
Sure, well, I won't belabor the federal funds piece. As you all know, that's ever fluctuating. The COVID era grants that we received are largely gone. I'm not going to walk through the different federal funding sources that we have or have had.
These are gone, these ones at the top of the page?
Just the, we lost about 1.8 million in ARPA funds.
Oh,
Sorry,
So-
I'm at the COVID era ones, yes.
okay.
Of course, the 27 budget.
You're through with the 1.8.
We're through.
Right.
The amounts that I have, and here are the amounts that we have in the 27 budget. So again, the numbers that you see are what we received. So when I build a budget, I build it based on what we've received already.
So you're not anticipating the federal government defunding any of these programs at this point?
We've been fairly fortunate. Most of our federal funds have somewhat stayed the same. Our VOCA fund, which is the one that, again, you may have heard over the years, it is our largest federal fund. A few years back, it was 6.7 million. This particular year, it's 1.9. It did go up for our 27 budget. So that's why we were able to, again, as I mentioned, use some federal funds to support some of the expenses that we had. So I'm forever balancing that out. But again, our federal funds, for the most part, we've been very fortunate compared to other agencies that we have stabilization somewhat with those federal funds.
We have had some worries with some of the different expectations that were communicated at different times in terms of what we could grant out, but
Yeah.
those have been thus far alleviated. We've dealt with those. We worked with the Attorney General's office, and so it's made it a little bit more volatile than normally is. But thus far, knock on wood. But again, our main challenge is just that, as you can understand, Carol is unique in the state in that she builds a budget based on projections. We're not like other state agencies. Again, we don't know, we don't have targets, we don't have a certain expectation. Carol works hard over the 3 to 4 previous years to figure out what you can reasonably expect and to keep the doors open and the doors open of our 60 sub-grantees. So as far as our ask, our overall ask is for $145,357.43. Breaking that down, $49,502.73 is the 3% ask, 3% increase in our base.
That's in the government.
That's in the governor's budget.
That's so
Yes.
you're not seeking an additional 145, you're really seeking an additional.
We're just hoping,
105.
yes, we're just hoping you keep it there.
We're not gonna, yeah. Okay.
The additional 95 is simply to recognize that center administers close to $2 million a year in state funds, whether it be general funds or special funds, out to programming. And we have never taken any administrative support for that. What we're seeking is 5% support. We do a lot of work to support these grants and have been doing it at no cost. And we just simply cannot sustain it. And in the past, it wasn't as much of a problem because we were able to utilize administrative funds through the federal grants that we received. That's not a reliable situation anymore.
Can't use federal, any portion of federal funds for.
The amount has decreased, and so respectively, when we rely on federal dollars, like I said, we go from 6.7 million and you go down to 1.9, we do receive 5% of that. But once again, I'm trying to build a budget saying we had 5% of 6.7, now we're down to 5% of 1.9. In addition, the reason is, so primarily, these general fund and special fund grants are the domestic and sexual violence grant, which we give out grants to the Vermont network of domestic and sexual violence. And then the anti-violence grants also go to them. So we're talking about 32 grants that we basically issue as sub-grants. We monitor them, we do all the financial reporting, all of the work associated with every sub-grant that we do. And we've never actually taken any administrative funds to support the work that we do. Partly is because historically, again, we've tried to always give out money to victim services, right, to support these programming. And the bases haven't changed much, meaning that the amount that we've been giving out directly to the programs and without them seeing any increases. When I talked about that for $450,000 one-time funds, Again, that went to help with the domestic and sexual violence fund grants. But we didn't capture anything. We never have. We're just getting, as we mentioned, we spent 2.7 million on supervised visitation. So you can only imagine how much money over the years we've supported all of these grants without any additional funds to support us. And we're getting to the point now where we just can't do that anymore. We don't have the special fund revenues coming in to support the work we do. And so what this 27 budget really reflects overall is the fact that the Center for Crime Victim Services can no longer rely on those special funds to support some of our day-to-day operational cost. So what you're really going to see in the ups and downs, which I think is very clear, is that we are going to rely more on general funds to support things like rent, electricity, things to keep our doors open, frankly. And because we can no longer use special funds to support that. And so that's what I've done is I've been able to use some of the federal dollars to support grants, and then use general funds to support some of those operating costs that I can't use anymore with special funds. So that's really the snapshot of what our budget looks like, is just like using our funds differently and really supporting the Center for Crime Victim Services, like other state agencies, to just fundamentally keep our doors.
Thank you. Tiff, this question.
Yes, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding kind of what, since I haven't looked at a spreadsheet, but if the domestic and sexual violence special fund is projected to be in deficit at the end of this fiscal year, by 343K, is the plan to use other money to support those grants, or
Is no other money. So that's why you're seeing the $450,000 cut, basically, in the ups and downs, is because they received that one-time fund. They gave out extra grants. Then in the 27 budget, we have to reduce that because unless they get another 450, we don't have the funding to do that. What you're seeing in the amount of the deficit is what we have for our base, and knowing that the revenues are not even supporting that. So technically, the DVSB fund has about a $783,000 base. That's what they've had for years and years and years, and that's what's granted out. So in 26, they received this money, but nothing says they're going to receive it in 27. So I had to reduce the budget back down to that $783,000 base. So their programs, meaning the Vermont Network Against Sexual and Domestic Violence programs throughout the state, are going to have to get cuts to their budgets in 27 because that amount of that one-time appropriation has gone away.
That was utilized for an increase as well.
Correct. Yeah, so they increased their grants out to their suburbs. The fund itself will likely be in the red because, again, that was a one-time appropriation. The revenues coming into the fund are just not going to even be close to the base amount. So that's so when I'm doing the budgets, I'm constantly looking at what is the appropriation for each fund and where are we at with the revenues. And so when those figures you're seeing is again, based on the base budget, the appropriation for each fund, and what is reality, what is actually coming into this. And that's what you'll see also in the compensation fund. Maybe unlike other folks, I actually had to reduce the base appropriation because I wasn't comfortable with building a budget that's not realistic to the revenues that are coming into the fund. And that's where I was shifting the use of more federal dollars and general fund dollars, because how can I build a budget of 1.5 million when I know that's not what's coming into the fund?
have those agencies, have the network agencies express how this will impact their services?
So they are very much aware that it was a one-time fund. We had conversations with them when they chose to give out grant funds. They didn't fully give out the 450 because of the balance, unfortunately, in that fund. So they kept like 200,000 in the fund because it was already going to be in the red. So essentially they are aware of it. We actually meet with them on a regular basis and I update them on the status of the DVSB fund. So we are doing that. We have done that. So I constantly pretty much tell them like, this is where we're at. This is the cash balance. This is where the fund is at. So we try to be very, transparent about it, and let them know that, they're aware of it. Obviously, they've made the ask over the years as well. So hope that answers your question.
Any other questions? Anything else you need to let us know about?
Yes. So there is one item that I'd like to bring up. As I mentioned, I've been doing this for a while now. And years ago, when I first started, I realized that there was money coming out of it. So we're talking about the restitution fund in particular. So I realized that there was $30,000 coming out of the restitution fund every single year, pretty much. Let me take that back. But I realized at the time there was $30,000 essentially being moved from the Center for Crime Victim Services Restitution Fund into the Department of Labor's budget. Just a $30,000 kind of transfer. So back years ago, I think it was probably 2015, because I started in 2014, $40,000 was taken out of the restitution fund. And so I worked with the Department of Finance to say, like, what is this? I don't have any documentation. I don't know why the money's coming out of our fund. I'm not aware of anything. I worked with the Department of Finance and our budget analysts at the time. It was recognized that this money probably shouldn't be coming out, but honestly, I had no idea what it was for. I just knew that money was coming out of our fund and where it was going. So I was told that it was going to stop, and it did. So in 2016 through 2022, no money was transferred from the restitution fund to the Department of Labor. And then all of a sudden in 2022, money came out again. And then it has in 24, 25, and 26. And apparently it's in the Department of Labor's budget now for 2027.
Labor or corrections?
I'm sorry, the
Labor.
Department of Labor.
Okay.
Yes. So
Is it 40,000 a year now?
it's
been 30.
It's been 30. I don't know, again, why that particular year was 40. Honestly, I have never had any supporting documentation to what this is, other than them just transferring it over.
Okay, so Trevor, then John.
Yeah, it's been brought to my attention, so we've been working on it. I've been working with Harvey Merrill, Finance and Management. He just sent me a document yesterday, sort of outlining some things, some statutory things that happened back in 2005 or whatever. We're not sure if this is really kosher. It's not prohibited, but DOL is not providing any accounting of this money either. So there are a couple of things here. So we're working on it right now.
Okay, and Mike has DOL. I think he's meeting with them right now, so. Nigel has DOL, and he's meeting with them right now.
So we'll try to figure that out.
Yeah, and Representative Squirrel has been helpful in digging a little deeper and giving us information, which I'm very grateful, because again, as I said, for a decade or so, I've been looking into this. I will say that the purpose of this was for individuals who must leave employment without cause because they were in a domestic or sexual violence. So again, from what I've gathered and what I've done for the research, is that if someone is in their job and they have to flee, essentially leave their job, they weren't basically allowed to get other ways to lost wages through, which they weren't allowed to collect unemployment, for example. So this was set up to kind of help folks that are leaving their jobs voluntarily. And it was set up to support that. But again, this was back in 2005. There was supposed to be a report as far as like that 30,000, it sounds initially was like, well, we're going to see how much you use. And then, depending on how much you use, we're going to carry it forward into the next year. So if you read this, that's what it sounds like. But I don't believe that that's what's been happening.
Yeah, okay. So John and Wayne.
I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah.
Provide more details.
Where does the fund sit?
It's a
I mean,
special fund in our special funds
I
report.
know, but is it within the administration, or someplace in the administration?
Yeah, well,
Huh?
No, it just, the special funds sit where they sit. There's just a whole bunch of.
So it's $30,000 taken out of our special funds
At the
and
end.
put into the
Budget.
Department of Labor's budget.
Budget,
So
just
but my
in,
question was, you got your special fund. It's you, it's not at the courts or anywhere else, it's your
They're
special.
just taking it from the restitution fund and,
How they,
finance administration can do this.
yeah, and they have. That's what's happened.
That's who's making the decision to do
okay,
this.
so I was wondering if Department of Labor, or whoever.
I don't know that they have authority to reach into special funds that aren't their own.
They should.
Right. So Trevor's digging into it, so we will learn more. Lynn?
this is the result of having had money in that fund before they got rid of the fines or the fees for people with their licenses, and suddenly it declined, and even there's a fund that has money. They can make a connection,
Mhm.
however. So obviously they.
That's a
won't-
different fund, I think, but.
Well, regardless, they took it
Yeah.
out, they transfer out of those special funds.
Yeah.
Cover other things all the time, and I guess in ways and means in different places, and.
I think
So
what's-
you were a victim of success, and then when judiciary took all of that away, you've been in decline and just nobody connected the.
And unfortunately, we've been a victim of about $310,000 that has been taken from that fund in total.
Yeah, so maybe we can get that back with interest.
That would be.
We would look a lot better with our restitution
So that-
fund if that had it.
Well, and your administration of things that you need to do. So sounds like Trevor's on the case with you guys, and thank you for raising this to our attention and bringing it to our awareness. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
So we'll see you around the building.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Last.
Committee, we have a fiscal committee at 12:15. We can show it in here, but we'll be across the street, across the. But you can eat your lunch in here and watch it, if we want to show it here, but, and then that's what we have for today, and then we'll start promptly at 1 on Monday. Do check the agendas over the weekend. Autumn will post it, and things could change by Monday morning, but assume 1 o'clock on Monday.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be on our committee